have you up front, and John and Steve, please. Other board members were contacted on short notice and would have liked to have been here but had conflicts. And they in fact said they very much wish they could, but as you all know, they have real jobs. So, why don't you get the center a little bit?
Our A's here. Oh, there you are. You're in front. Come up because there may be questions. Please read it. Jay. Good morning. Appreciate everyone being here this morning on such short notice. Have two purposes really for today's press conference. One is to share some information on our ISTEP scores. Want to do almost a disclaimer. It's preliminary information, but the kind of scores that we want to talk about today, we felt that it was very important to put them into context and to have this conversation before the end of the school year, which is next week. The other thing that connected to that is the fact that with the scores coming in when they do, we're going to have a gap between when parents are going to get the scores, and there are going to be some needs for us to do some mailings and some explaining to parents how to access it online. So we felt that it was very critical to have this conversation with our community because parents need to know how to access this one piece of information about how we're doing as a district and more importantly how their child's doing. So what we want to do today is to cover those two topics. With me today, obviously, I have board members who are here. I have John Klein, who is in charge of our assessment systems throughout the district, Area Administrator Dan Bickle, Area Administrator Faye Williams-Robbins. So at the end of our little conversation here, we can have any questions that you might have. We also have in the audience Steve Brace and Al Jackaway, who are part of FWA. So that's the cast of characters, and we'll start our conversation. Standing next to me is the president of the board, Mark GiaQuinta, and I'm going to go through just some preliminary information and then turn it over to Mr. GiaQuinta. Then I'll wrap up. As we started off this conversation, ISTEP results, preliminary ISTEP results, and I'm going to use that word a lot. Preliminary ISTEP results have come back to the districts all over the state. One of the issues that we need to also talk about today is the state has not released the statewide averages or the data. So that's not information we have any solid information to share with you today. But the basis of this conference is about comparing FWCS to last year. Because this is the second year in a row we've had spring testing, so we do have a basis of comparison with how we did this year with how we did last year. There's several very critical things to talk about. First of all, for the first time in my history, and John's been around as long as I've been around, FWCS went up at every single tested level, at every single grade, in both subjects, language arts and math. We still It's dangerous to have an awful lot of conversation when you don't have all of the data, but we think this is absolutely something that needs to be shared with the teachers in the classroom and the principals and the administrators and the students and the parents who all year long, with all the uncertainty that public education is facing, focused on what the real issue was. It's all about whether our students are achieving and whether there's individual growth. So we believe that alone is a cause for celebration because of all of that hard work and focus and dedication. So that's the one thing. One little piece of that was, as always, when you're a corporation this large, there are two schools that we don't have all of the data scored for. One is Memorial Park, the other is Black Hawk. And it's important to mention those two schools in particular because normally, over the years, they have had some of the higher scores in our district. So whatever information we're sharing today, we expect it to look even better at 6th and 8th grade for the middle schools because we have two of our largest middle schools that we won't get that data back till probably July. And that's unfortunate, but glitches happen. So we're going to be communicating specifically with those parents for them to understand how to access that information when it does come in. The other piece of information that I want to share is that this really is a turning point for us as a district. We've been saying forever, this board's been saying, that ISTEP is only one indicator of the success of a district, and in particular of students. For the first time, we're able to look at some of our internal assessments, the acuity. We've talked about that several times at board meetings, the predictive acuity, and to look at the relationship between what teachers analyzing data in elementaries every 2 weeks, whether what we gained in those frequent assessments absolutely lines up or matches what has occurred with ISTEP. And so there's a validation on several levels with the news we want to share today. One, growth at every single level in both subjects. Also the fact that the work our teachers did every single week benefited our students because our predictive scores really line up rather well with our actual ISTEP results. But there's one other little piece of information that I want to share, and I'm going to try to do the Vanna White and show you on the chart. One of the conversations the board has with me constantly, well, so what happens to cohorts? What happens to students who were 3rd grade this year, 4th grade next year? And we know that our classes may change, but basically you want to see growth. We have seen with our results that our cohort groups show growth. And if they don't show growth, they at least stay the same. So that also is another reason for celebration. So I'm going to try to do this, and if I mess up, you can fill the void. Because this is an eye test. But as you can see, what we have here on this chart, and it's on the back of your information, these are our spring '09 ISTEP scores. These are the acuity predictive scores that our teachers tested our students and used throughout the year. And I want to put a plug in because this is a test that the state pays for. We have been paying for that as a district, and the state this year picked up that tab. And it was used on purpose as a predictive indicator of whether your students were achieving. This is the spring of 2010, same thing for math, okay? So when you look at our 3rd grade last year, they had a score of 64. For this year, they would have been the 4th graders. So this year was 64 to 70. You follow me? That means I haven't lost it as a teacher. Last year, 64. If you go over, these were our 4th graders. At 5th grader, 66. So the cut score, the score they achieved is one thing. The fact that the cohort groups show growth is another. And we really believe that this is due to the hard work and the dedication of the people in the classroom, the fact that parents, my grandchildren, were reminded by their parents on the night before ISTEP, get to bed early. And so we want to really thank our parents, too, for working with us on what we believe are just the first step of the results we intend to see as a district. We're happy with what we have, but it's only the first step. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. GiaQuinta.